महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। गुरुब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। Namaste friends. A hearty welcome to one and all for today's 47th session of Gift, Gita for Inner Freedom and Transformation. Last class, we have studied the verses from 9.13 to 9.17. In these verses, Krishna explains the nature of noble souls, devotion and understanding, role of divine grace, and purpose of life. Krishna also explains the different stages of bhakti, that is, personalized worship of God through eka roopa bhakti, universal worship of God through aneka roopa or vishwarupa bhakti, and formless worship of God, that is, arupa bhakti. He highlights that the diversity in spiritual approaches and the evolving nature of one's understanding of God, all of which can ultimately lead to a deeper realization of the Supreme Divine. In today's session, we will be studying the verses from 9.18 to 9.22. To explain these verses, we have with us Dr. Ashwini, Srimati Diksha, Srimati Vindhya, Srimati Vani Bhaskar, and Dr. Rajeshwari. Today's moderation, presentation, and deeper inputs will be given by Dr. Divakar. Over to you, Dr. Divakar.
Thank you. Thank you, Radha. Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. With the deepest sense of reverence and gratitude to Adi Guru, Dakshinamurti, and all the Guru Paramparas, starting from Shankaracharya to Asmadacharya, Swami Paramarthananda, and Team Param Vedanta, led by Dr. Timappa Hegde. These sessions are obviously offering us deeper insights into Bhagavad Gita and getting to know the subtler aspects, which is helping us in this journey of our spirituality. So we are studying the 9th chapter, Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya Yoga. We know that this chapter is in the Madhyama Shatkam. Madhyama Shatkam, as we know, deals with the nature of Ishvara, nature of the God, nature of Bhagavan. And we know that the real teaching started from the 7th chapter, Jnana Vijnana Yoga. We notice that this chapter, the 9th chapter, is very much similar to the 7th chapter. It is so much different to the 8th chapter that we have studied already, the Akshara Brahma Yoga, because Akshara Brahma Yoga deals with what is called as Krama Mukti, because it was dealing with the Saguna Ishvara Upasana. Every word is important. Saguna, a God with the attributes. Ishvara Upasana, as we know, Upasana is a form of meditation which is required for the mental stability. Our restless mind has to be calmed. First of all, the impurities has to be removed through Karma Yoga, and then the Upasana Yoga, which is being the central sadhana of the Madhyama Shatkam, is dealt in the 8th chapter in the form of Saguna Ishvara Upasana. And then in the 9th chapter, we are back to the Nirguna Brahman Jnanam. Here we see Nirguna Brahman Jnanam is used because the knowledge, the self-knowledge or the knowledge of the Brahman is talked about as it was talked in the 7th chapter. And this is called as Sadhyo Mukti. Sadhyo Mukti, Sadhyah, the word Sadhyah itself means instant, which means this knowledge is something, that we get in order to get the moksha within this life itself. It is also called as Jivan Mukti. For an unprepared mind, this knowledge, or in other words, the Brahma Jnanam, is very, very difficult to grasp. Therefore, this knowledge will remain as the royal secret or the Raja Guhyam. That is where the word Raja Guhyam comes. Now, since this knowledge alone helps us in the liberation, this is called as the highest knowledge or the Raja Vidya. Therefore, the name Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya Yoga. So, which means what? Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya Yoga means that knowledge which is, although it is very freely available, readily available, there are not many takers. If you see, that is what was explained even in the 7th chapter. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yadati siddhaye yatatāmapi siddhanam kaschin mam vetti tatvatah. Although there are so many people, only few of them will get the interest in knowing about the God. Amongst those few people, only few of them, few amongst those rare people will know the God in totality. Totality means both para and apara nature. We have already studied this. Para is the higher nature, which is the nirguna swarupa. And then apara is the lower nature, which is the saguna swarupa. So only few people will know God in its totality. And amongst those few people, only few of them will become jnana nishtas. Once they get the jnanam, one will have to anchor in that. Very, very rare breed. Therefore, even though the knowledge is available, because it requires a subtle mind and lot of preparation, it remains a secret for many people. Therefore, Raja Guhyam. And only through jnanam one can achieve, or one can get the liberation or moksha. Liberation from what? Liberation from samsara, or the cycle of punarapi jananam and punarapi maranam. No other means is there for the moksha. Jnanam eva kaivalyam. Therefore, this is the greatest knowledge, or the Raja Vidya. Now, we have seen already in this chapter the central theme, which is that of the Nirguna Ishvara, is covered from the verses 4 till the verse 10. Some of the features of the Nirguna Brahman is talked about. What are they? Brahman or Atma is sarvagataha, is all pervading. Atma is avyaktaha. It is not accessible for any of our sense organs. Indriya agochara avyaktaha. Atma is the adhishtanam, mithya jagat adhishtanam. That is a substratum for the entire cosmos. Atma is asanga swarupaha. Although it is the very essence, very substratum, it is not attached to anything. Atma is the srishti, sthiti, and the laya karanam. Again, we have covered all these aspects in detail in the 7th chapter as well, and in the earlier verses. Atma, or the Brahman, is the sakshi matram, and therefore it is akarta and abhokta. There is no doership, and therefore no receivership also. So none of the karma palas are associated with the Brahman. From the verse 11, the diagnosis is made. What is the cause for the human suffering is talked about. The verse 11 itself talks about samsara, or the self-ignorance is brought out as the cause for the suffering. Self-ignorance means what? Our very nature is that of Satchidananda Atma. But because of the layers of coverings that we have, one of the innate layer that we have from the birth, the biggest layer or the biggest covering we have is the avidya layer, or the self-ignorance layer. And that in essence, is the cause for the suffering. And from the verses 12 till 19, the remedy for the samsara nivritti through bhakti, which gets culminated into the jnanam, is talked about. We know that chapter 12, Bhakti Yoga, is there, which talks exclusively about the bhakti. But more than that chapter, some of the most beautiful and important verses on the bhakti are covered in this 9th chapter. There are 3 types of bhakti based on the sadhanas. All of this is again touched upon. So sadhana based bhakti, what are the sadhanas that we know of? Karma yoga, upasana yoga, and jnana yoga. And again from the verse 20 to 29, 2 types of bhakti based on the motives, whether one has the sakama bhakti or nishkama bhakti is talked about. So does it mean that bhakti is a separate sadhana in itself? Does it have to be practiced independently? The answer is clear-cut no. Swami Paramarthananda ji explains this beautifully. If we take a ladder, bhakti is this supporting limbs of the ladder, whereas we have the steps, which are the sadhanas. The first sadhana that we ought to be practicing on a day-to-day basis is karma yoga. We know what is karma yoga. Karma yoga is the right action with the right attitude. Attitude of Ishvara Arpana and Ishvara Prasada in all of our actions. So what does karma yoga do? Karma yoga brings about the mental purity. Malam, we are covered with a lot of impurities. Karma yoga helps us clean all these impurities. Then we have upasana yoga for mental stability, all forms of meditations. And then we have jnana yoga, which is a self-inquiry basing shastras and the guru, which is a systematic study involving shravanam and mananam. And then anchoring to this knowledge and practicing one's life is nididhyasanam. Only then the moksha. So where is bhakti in this? Bhakti is there in the form of karma yoga. It is there in the form of upasana yoga and also jnana yoga. One has to have pure devotion in every of this sadhana. Otherwise, that sadhana itself will not be called as a yoga. In fact, the word yoga itself we can associate with bhakti. So without bhakti, these sadhanas are not possible. Then depending on the object of the meditation, we evolve through this bhakti from eka roopa Ishvara. When we think that the world is the means, we use the God. A world is the goal rather. We use the God as the means. We use God for all of our worldly desires. Most of the times, it is at that time we worship Ganesha. Now it is Ganesha Chaturthi season, and Ananta Padmanabha is coming up. So we worship all the formed gods, which is called as Eka Rupa Bhakti. And more we evolve in this path, we expand this vision. So we have studied in the 7th chapter, Vinna Prakriti Rashtada. It is the lower form of the Ishvara or the Bhagavan itself, which manifests into the entire cosmos, entire universe. And therefore, everything that we are seeing today outside is God itself. So this visualization of God in the world is called as aneka roopa bhakti or vishwarupa. And then, of course, transcending beyond this is the arupa bhakti. So bhakti without knowledge can never give liberation. We have seen this before. Jnanam eva kaivalyam. So is the love, which is bhakti, means or the goal? If God is the means and world is the goal, which is in the case of artha bhakti and artharthi bhakti. So where did we get these words from? From the 7th chapter, 16th verse. Artho jignasur artharthi jnani cha bharadashava. 4 types of bhaktas are there. Artha bhakti is the one, bhakta is the one who goes to God when there is a problem. Sankata bandaga Venkata Ramana is a saying in Kannada. Whenever we have a difficulty, when there is exams coming up, when there is some kind of results, medical tests are going on, then God is remembered. So that is the lowest form of bhakta, artha bhakta. Artharthi. Here, somebody is comfortable but asking for more and more. So this is for artharthi. Artha is the wealth in this case. So these are the lowest, artha and artharthi are the lowest forms of bhaktas. And for them, God is the means, world is the goal. They are also called as sakama bhaktas. And then if the world is the means and God becomes the goal, then this kind of a bhakta is called as a jignasu bhakta. Here, a sadhaka is thinking about who is God, what is God, I want to know more about God, both from the higher and the lower point of view, apara and para. He is a jignasu bhakta. Then he will go in the right path, seek the gurus, shastras, satsang. Perhaps we can all put ourselves in this particular group. Then the highest form of bhakti is the gnani bhakti. So, swaswarupa anusandhanam bhaktiritya adhiyate. So, Viveka Chudamani says, highest form of bhakti is the gnani bhakti. Here, gnanam, of course, is the self-knowledge, which means from the world dependence, one is transcending towards the God dependence and then towards the self-dependence. Now, with this background, we will go to today's verses. Verse 18 will be explained by Dr. Ashwini. We will see a lot of similarities in the verse which comes from the Brahmarpanam Brahma Havir verse that we already. Ashwini.
Namaste, Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Kindly ignore this background noise. Unable to help. Gatir Bhartra Prabhu Sakshi Nivasa Sharanam Suhrit Prabhava Pralayasthanam Nidhanam Bijamavyayam. The discussion on Vishwarupa Ishvara continues and the list follows, which is made evident in the Bhashyam by Bhagavatpada Shankaracharya. Next slide, sir. Gatihi karma phalam. Next slide, sir. Gatihi karma phalam. Gatihi, which is equal to karma phalam, it literally means destination that we confront in future. Karma phalams are result of our action. So if someone is healthy or unhealthy, it is all because of our own actions, and we can never accuse Bhagavan for our karma phalams. The second thing is bharta. Bharta poshta. That is equal to poshta, one who nourishes everyone, providing whatever required. Pushnati iti poshta, provider or supporter. Anandagiri translates poshta as karma phala data, which is another meaning for bharta. So gatihi is karma phalam, bharta is karma phala data. Both are Bhagavan. Prabhu Swami. Prabhu Swami. Bhagavan is the master. It simply means owner of everything. From being celestial master to the ultimate one, Bhagavan owns everything. Swam means wealth and Swami means one who owns everything and anything. Sakshi praninam kritakritasya. Praninam kritakritasya sakshi, the witness. Sakshat drishta sakshi, the one who witnesses everything without undergoing any change. The one who directly perceives praninam kritaha akritasya. Kritam is commissions, akritam is omissions of all the living beings. Nivasaha yasmin pranino nivasanti. Nivasaha means residence. Nivasati asmin iti nivasaha. Vasasthanam. Yasmin praninaha nivasanti. The 14 lokas in which all living beings reside is Bhagavan. That is me. Here we have to just supply aham asmi. Aham gatihi asmi. Aham bharta asmi. Aham prabhu asmi, etc. Then Sharanam. Sharanam Artanam Prapannanam Artriharaha. Sharanam is shelter. Bhagavan says he is the shelter for all living beings to provide freedom from pain. Artanam, distressed living beings. And Prapannam, the distress surrendered to the Lord. So prapannam arthanam, distressed, seeking help from the Lord. And Artri Haraha is the one who removes this pain. Then the seventh one is Suhrita. Suhrita pratyupakara anapeksha sanupakari. The upakari is Suhrita, a well-wisher or someone who does good to others, and someone who does not expect any reciprocation for his good deeds. Sushobhanam hrita yasya sa suhrutaha. The one who does things only out of his compassion. It is in the next slide, sir. Then the eighth one is prabhavaha. Prabhavaha utpattihi jagataha. Prabhavaha utpattihi jagataha. It is in the next slide, sir. The rise or emergence of the world is Bhagavan.
Sorry, I'm not able to
Utpattihi
talk.
karanam. Yeah, it is in the next slide. Utpattihi karanam. The source is also Bhagavan. Bhavarthaha is utpattihi, the very process. Apadanartha is the source of creation. Of what? The Jagataha, the entire creation. The entire creation. Then is the pralayaha. Then is the pralayaha, correct. The pralayaha, I think it is after this. Yes. Pralayaha praliyate yasmin. Pralayaha is the process of dissolution, which is Bhagavan. Pralayite yasmin iti pralayaha. The ground in which everything resolves into is also Bhagavan. Next is sthanam. Tatha sthanam tishtati asmin iti. Sthiti karanam cha aham asmi. Everything rests into me. Sarva adhara, sarva adhishtanam aham asmi. So everything rests into Bhagavan. Then is the nidhanam. Nidhanam nikshepaha kalantara upabhogyam praninam. It is nikshepaha, which means that it exists in the potential form. It simply equates to avyakta prapancha or karana prapancha. It is the deposit for the future consumption or withdrawal, kalantara upabhogyam, which is to be consumed in future for all living beings, is called nidhanam. Then is the bijam. Bijam is praroha karanam, praroha dharminam. Praroha karanam, praroha dharminam, the cause of praroha. Praroha means emergence. Please note that the word nidhanam is what has been already deposited, whereas the word bijam means that which we can deposit hereafter for the future growth. The potential possibility is bijam. Possibilities that has been already tapped is nidhanam. So these tapped and untapped possibilities are nothing but Bhagavan, who is avyayam. Avyayam is inexhaustible. Avyayam, and in fact, avyayam and bijam are not two separate descriptions, which means if we ask what type of seed is Bhagavan, he is the avyayam. So it is more like an adjective. Inexhaustible seed of everything, and Bhagavan is Brahma plus Maya together. Maya sahitam Brahman is the seed for everything. Bhagavatpada Shankara explains further, Yavat samsara bhavitvat. Bhagavan as a seed continues to exist externally. So long as the creation continues as an external process, Bhagavan continues as seed of the creation. Hence, Bhagavan is avyayam bijam. The potentiality for all the new species that are evolving has been provided in the bijam called Ishvara. Ishvara is Brahma and Maya sahitam. So, nityam cha praroha darshanat. Since constantly new arrivals are experienced by us, bijasantatihi, the series in the form of Bhagavan, na vyati, it never gets exhausted. So na vyati is the explanation given to avyayam. Iti gamyate, which is inferred by Bhagavatpada. Since potentiality is not pratyaksha gocharam, it has to be anumana gocharam. Anumana gocharam or anumiyate, which means it needs to be inferred by us. Here it is inferred by Bhagavatpada that it is avyayam. It never gets exhausted. Therefore, Bhagavan is avyayam bijam bhavati. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashwini, for that wonderful explanation using Shankara Bhashyam. And it's not easy to understand Shankara Bhashyam, even sometimes with the fantastic commentaries given by Swamiji. We need to go through this Bhashyam several times to understand and assimilate. Especially for a beginner, it will be more difficult. So the request everyone to go through this, maybe a couple of times to understand, because these concepts are brought out brilliantly. So the causeless cause, the primordial seed of Ishvara, which is a combination of Brahman and Maya, was talked about here. And therefore, so long as there is creation, so long as you see Jagat, it is through Anumana, it is through inference we know that the seed, the causeless cause, is always there. So we move on to the next verse, which will be explained by Bhiksha. Bhiksha, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The verse goes like, Tapāmyahamaham varsham nigrinam yutsrajami cha amritam chaiva mrityuscha sadasachaham arjuna. Next slide, Doctor. So this particular verse brings about beautifully about what manifestation is. Not just any type of manifestation, the Lord's manifestation in the pleasant things as well as the pleasant things. And there are a lot of analogies and symbolism that is brought about in this particular verse. The Lord is the cause of the origin of the world and all the activities taking place in it. As an illustration, the phenomena of rain is explained here. The sun causes heat and absorbs water, and then again releases it in the form of rain. The whole of the natural phenomena, as we understand it, is the work of the Lord Himself. If we extend the analogy, we will find that every force, small or great, is nothing but the manifestation of the Lord. Next slide, Doctor. The very famous example of the rope and the snake is something that Swamiji has spoken about. When the rope is mistaken for the snake, the rope is the foundation and it has not lost any form of its own. Also, what appears as the universe is in reality Brahman. So everything in the world, like death and immortality, like being and non-being, relatively is nothing but Brahman. Next slide, Doctor. The recurring theme of this chapter is that we should see Ishvara everywhere, instead of looking only in things and places that our senses find pleasurable. In that regard, since we deal with the weather every day, it can become a great pointer to access Ishvara. However, anytime the climate becomes too hot or there is excessive rain or drought, our body feels uncomfortable, and therefore we do not even think of Ishvara when those things happen. Shri Krishna says in the shloka that it is Ishvara that is providing the heat as the sun. So when it gets extremely hot, we should recognize that it is Ishvara that is providing the energy for the sun. And even though we may feel uncomfortable, we should realize that Ishvara has the welfare of the entire earth in mind. When it gets hot, the water on earth rises to form clouds and is eventually sent back as rain. If the sun were never to give enough heat, we would never get any rain on earth. Sri Krishna says that Ishvara is found in immortality as well as in death. Symbolically, what is meant here is that knowing Ishvara as an infinite entity is real immortality, and knowing Ishvara as finite is death. And there's a beautiful analogy of the oceans and the waves that is brought about here. When we see only waves and foam in the ocean, we will eventually see them die. But when we only see the ocean and don't separate it out as the waves, then there is no death of the waves whatsoever, because we see the entire ocean as a whole. Now, how do we develop such a vision? By knowing what is Sat and what is Asat. Just because something is perceived by our senses, it does not automatically become real. Optical illusions is a great example for this. This echoes the lessons of the second chapter, where Sri Krishna encourages us to develop Tattva Drishti, or the vision of the essence and not the names or forms. O Arjuna, I control heat, the rain, and the drought. I am immortality and I am also death personified. Both being and non-being are in me. With this shloka, Sri Krishna concludes the topic on pointers of Ishvara. A new topic, forms of devotion, is taken up next. Hari Om, thank you.
Thank you so much for another very crisp and nice explanation with fantastic slides. So here we can start to see the Vishwarupa, Ishvara, which is being described. So as we know, Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga is in the 11th chapter, but this is all build up for that Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga. It starts from the 7th chapter itself. Because even to conceive that actually the God is the world. In other words, everything that we experience, everything we perceive, including this computer, including, the chairs, the table that we are sitting in, is a manifestation of the God will take a long time, and it requires our mind to be more subtler. Therefore, the teaching starts from the 7th chapter itself. So this will be built up, and in the 10th chapter, the big glories are talked about, and eventually in the 11th chapter, it culminates into Vishwarupa, which again moves on to Bhakti in the 12th chapter. So this you have covered beautifully. And here again, we look at, Mama Sattva Guna Dvara Amrutasya Karanam. So God, through this Sattva Guna, every positive things that you see in the world is talked about. All the creations. Mama Rajoguna Dvara Sthiti Karanam. The maintenance, the sustenance of the entire world is through the Rajoguna. And then Mama Tamoguna Dvara Ahameva Mrityu Karanam. So which you have talked about, all the destruction and then resolving back to the seed form is through the Tamoguna. So all the concepts of Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara is all talked about here. Just like how the seed in its unmanifested form becomes the tree and then goes to unmanifested. All the asat, which is the unmanifested abstract. In this context, asat means the unmanifested abstract. And the manifested concrete sat, both of them are the manifestations of the God alone. So Ishvara being the material cause, the upadana karanam, is talked about beautifully in these verses. So we all know that there is no pot without the clay. So there is no universe without the very content, which is the God. With this, we will move on to the next verse, which will be explained by Vindhya. Vindhya, please.
Hari Om, everyone. Traividya mam somapa puta papaha yajnair istva svargatim prarthayante te punyam asadya surendra lokam asnanti divyan divideva bhogan. Traividya, those who are the knowers and practitioners of the three Vedas, Rig, Yajur, and Sama, Here, Atharvana Veda is not mentioned because it's not part of regular rituals. Mam prarthayante. They worship me indirectly through the Vedic rituals in the form of various devatas. Vedic rituals are divided into 3 groups. One of them is Soma Yajna. Somapa. Somapa are those who take somaras as prasada after offering it as during the rituals, and puta papaha, which means free from papaha or purified from papaha after drinking some soma. Svargatim, having access to the heavens. Asadhya, having reached. Punyam Surendra Lokam, the sacred world of Indra. Te asnanti, they enjoy. Divyan Deva Bhogan, the celestial pleasures of gods. Divi, in heaven. Itsva, having worshipped. Mam, me. Yajna, through yajnas. Having worshipped me with the help of the 7 Soma Yajnas, those who know me, those people who know me through the 3 Vedas and who drink the Soma juice are purified of sins. They are the ones who access heavens. And having reached the sacred world of Indras, they enjoy celestial pleasures of the gods in the heavens. So the previous verse, verse 19, that Viksha spoke about, was about bhakti, and that tried to describe about bhakti as a means of liberation. Now, in the next few verses, from verse 20 to 29, Krishna talks about 2 types of bhaktis, sakama bhakti and nishkama bhakti. Sakama bhakti, or religious materialism, and nishkama bhakti, or religious spirituality. A sakama bhakta seeks artha and kama, which is the means for material ends. Nishkama bhakta is aware of the limitations of materialistic ends and asks for moksha, or aspects that are relevant to moksha. For example, a nishkama bhakta may ask for the purity of mind, or virtues relevant to seek knowledge, or an opportunity to study the shastras. He may even ask for a devout guru who will teach him the way to attain moksha. So these are all aspects that help a nishkama bhakta attain the goal, and his goal is moksha. However, a sakama bhakta's goal is worldly desires. In this verse, we focus on sakama bhaktas, which make up the majority of the population. This majority is unaware of the differences between sakama bhakti and nishkama bhakti. They're also unaware of the supremacy of nishkama bhakti. Sakama bhaktas are only praying for kama kamaha. So while they may follow all the Vedic rituals that are mentioned in the Vedas, towards the end, instead of asking for moksha, they ask for worldly desires. So in kama kamaha, the first kama refers to anatma, or worldly goals. Second kamaha refers to desires. Thus, they're only after material desires. Worldly desires include a lot of things. You may think it's just a big house or a lot of money, but it also includes simple things like asking for the prosperity of your family members. And this is a very common practice among many of us as Hindus. When we go to the temple, we ask for better health of our loved ones. We make requests regarding the education or marriage of our children. But Krishna finds this foolish. Even though he doesn't object, he is very objective here. He doesn't outright say it. It is as if he is ready to hand out moksha to the person, but is forced to stop himself and hand out dharma, artha, kama instead, because that is what you are asking for. There is also an example of using Ganga Jal to wash the floor, and this absurdity has been used to explain Sakama Bhakta's participation in Vedic rituals to ask for materialism instead of moksha. But again, Krishna is objective here, and is only explaining what a sakama bhakta is without categorizing it as good or bad. Now, what do these sakama bhaktas do? Now that they've read the Vedas and everything, sakama bhaktas do end up, if they have done 100 yajnas, they do go to Indra Padavi. But in Indra Padavi, instead of learning about the Vedantic scriptures like a nishkama bhakta would do, they continue to engage in pleasures, but instead of bhuta pleasures, they engage in celestial pleasures, or rather, instead of engaging in worldly pleasures, they now engage in celestial pleasures. So, in summary, verse 20 talks about how the same bhakti is practiced in two ways. And in verse 20, we are talking about only sakama bhakti and its consequences. Hari Om.
Thank you, Vindhya, for another very nice explanation. Right, as you say, this particular verse onwards, Krishna is talking about two types of bhakti based on what is the object of their bhakti. Those who, look for material kind of goals are called as sakama bhaktas. So we have seen this, you mentioned about Indra and how people even ask for varas to go to Kailasa or, Swargaloka, where the lifespan is much longer than the Bhuloka, and they are more healthy, they enjoy, they get lots of things, and sense pleasures are, very much heightened there. So even that is temporary, and we have seen this fantastic, shloka from the Manisha Panchakam, which talks about this. Yat saukyam budalesha leshata ime shakradayo nivrita. Shakra means the Indra only. So whatever even Indra or the higher lokas experience, they are like one simple drop in the, okay, it's saukyambudi lesha leshata ime. So in the Brahmananda Sagara, if you have an ocean full of Brahmananda or Atma Jnanam, all these pleasures are just like one drop only. So basically, this shloka explains. Imagine if people go to, if there is something called as Manushya Ananda unit. This is also talked about in Taittiriya Upanishad, beautifully said in Ananda Mimamsa. Suppose if there is a young person, very good, cultured, well versed in scriptures, well disciplined, resolute, and very, very strong, very attractive. All the wealth in the earth belongs to this person, and that is equivalent to one Manushya unit. Okay. Now, if that Manushya goes to higher lokas, and you can see how that gets kind of multiplied 10 to the power of 2 in the Manushya Gandharva Loka, Deva Loka, and highest form of sense pleasure, Indra is here 10 to the power of 14. Even he is a drop in the ocean of the Brahmananda. So highest, sense pleasure is that of the Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha Ananda is the highest sense pleasure. As we know, Hiranyagarbha is the macrocosmic Sukshma Sharira. Samasti Sukshma Sharira is Hiranyagarbha. That is 10 to the power of 20. Even that belongs to temporary, realms, only. Because although the age will be, you will see one yuga, one kalpa, there are ages which are thousands of years, lakhs of years, but even there is a finite time which is stipulated for that, as opposed to Brahmananda, which is infinite. So all the sense pleasures that we experience, including that of the Hiranyagarbha Ananda, is just a reflection. Okay. And all these reflections have their own limitation, just like how you see Atma is the Bimba Ananda, and we have the reflections from the Manushya Ananda to Hiranyagarbha Ananda, which is called as Pratibimba Vishayananda. You have Bimba Brahmananda the main source of the light, and the reflection, which is pratibimba. So all these pratibimbas are full of the inherent defects in them called as bandhakatvam. They bind the person through the sense organs and sense objects and the interaction between them. There is always incompleteness. Indra is, we have seen so many of the movies and Puranic stories. Indra is never happy despite all of his pleasures that he has got. He's always looking, for people who are higher than him. So there is always atripti and dukkha mishritatvam. When you lose these things, it will bring about a lot of unhappiness and sorrow. So these people who aim for the sakama karmis, they will continue to be in the cycle of samsara, which is that of punarapi jananam and punarapi maranam. And Krishna says that although this is the lowest form of bhakti, it is still bhakti. There is no need to feel bad about it. Our Shastras also talk about Chaturveda Purusharthas, Artha, Kama, Dharma and Moksha, all of them. Once you accomplish Artha, Kama, Dharma, one can go to Moksha. But the question is when? When do we draw that line? Do we ever feel satisfied with Artha, Kama and Dharma? That is for us to have this sense, self-reflection. In this, move on to the next verse, which is explaining about the nishkama and bhaktas. Vani ma'am, over to you.
Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. This is the 21st verse, and it goes like this. Tēṣāṁ bhuktva svargalokam vishalam kshīne punye martyalokam vishanti evam trayi dharma manuprapanna gatagatam kama kama labhante. The meaning of this verse is, having enjoyed that vast heavenly world, they come back to the world of mortals when their punya is exhausted. Thus, the seekers of sense pleasures who have taken to the rituals of Vedas attain arrival and departure. So here, in this verse, Sri Krishna explains that the celestial delights of the heavenly abode are also temporary. So these talk about the sakama bhaktas. So tēṣāṁ bhuktva svargalokam vishalam. Tēṣāṁ bhuktva. So people having enjoyed that. So people having enjoyed what? Svargalokam vishalam. So this Svargalokam is very, very vast. So as Dr. Divakar said, so it is in terms of plenty, in terms of time, in terms of variety, it is very, very different from Bhuloka. So it is very, very higher than Bhuloka. People enjoy these wonderful pleasures for a very, very long time also. Kshīne punye martyalokam vishanti. So when all the punya is exhausted, they simply drop down to the world of mortals. The cause for all these people to go to the heaven is punya. So their stay there will last only as long as the punya is there. The physical body they enjoy in heaven is earned by the previous punya karmas. So for every experience in heaven, they have to encash their punyas. So when all the punya is exhausted, they come back to the Martyaloka, that is the world of mortals. So from this, it is very clear that the Svargaloka or the heaven which we are talking about is not eternal. But in our scriptures and shastras, it is presented as Amritaloka, which means not subjected to death. Heaven is misunderstood as eternal. Here we have to understand that immortality is only relative. With reference to the time in Bhuloka, Svargaloka is relatively eternal, but it is not eternal. It is not timelessness. So attaining promotion to the heavenly abodes does not fulfill the eternal quest of the soul. So statements like Kshīne punye martyalokam vishanti makes us think. It helps us to develop viveka and vairagya, and it helps us to turn oneself towards oneself. So Shastra always tries to drive us to a point where we cannot but seek moksha. People have to come back after the punya is exhausted. They cannot do new karmas in heaven and stay back. Heaven or Svargaloka is only a bhoga bhumi. It is not a karma bhumi. It is only enjoyership in heaven. There is no doership in heaven. So evam traidharmam anuprapannaha. Evam means it is in the manner that was told in the previous verse, like doing the Vedic rituals like the Soma ritual and avoiding the wrong actions. So Trai here refers to the three Vedas and the word dharmam refers to karma. Anuprapannaha means one who follows various karmas laid out in the three Vedas, like performing a ritual to invoke the Lord or some devata for gaining some loka and so on. So there are kama kamaha. So what is kama kamaha? These people are interested in sensory enjoyments and worldly pleasures. They're not interested in moksha. So what happens to these kind of people? Gata gatam labante. So these people who are kama kamaha gain gata, that is going, agata is coming. So they go to the Svargaloka and come back to the world of mortals. Because they went to the Svargaloka, they have to come back. This particular life characterized by coming and going is called gata and agata. And this is samsara. Those people who are desirous of various objects gain only samsara. Shankara says that they do not gain any sort of independence or freedom, but remain under the spell of kama, karma, and karmapala. Because of the desire, they do the action, that is the karma, and because of the karma, they have the karma pala. And because of karma pala, that they acquire punya or papa. To exhaust this punya or papa, they have to take a janma. So, because of the janma, they do karma, and because of karma, they have janma. Thus, they are helplessly caught in the orbit of becoming. As Shankara said in Bhajagovindam, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. So, to get rid of this cycle of birth and death, one has to give up the notion of I am the karta, which takes place in the wake of knowledge, and that is moksha. So, desire for moksha is more important. Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you, ma'am, for another wonderful explanation. Yes, this verse is also dealing with the sakama bhaktas and what happens to them. What is the consequence for them? So I was just thinking about a example. If let us imagine a person has had a fracture in his hand, and instead of going to an orthopedician, he goes to a pharmacist because there is severe pain. Pharmacist, without even advising the person to go to the doctor, the orthopedician, he himself gives a painkiller. So painkiller is taken and then the pain is vanished. For how long? Maybe about half an hour, 10 minutes, depending on the movements and all that. Then he keeps going back to the pharmacist again and again, again and again. Suppose we can relate this. The first aid for our growth in this journey is the religious life. Unfortunately, many people get stuck at the first aid itself, at the painkiller level itself. Instead of going to an orthopedician to fix it, the orthopedician is the Gnana Marga, Guru and the Shastras. For a permanent cure, one will have to go to Guru and Shastras. But if you don't go, and if you get satisfied with just the pain relief, which is temporary, we will continue to go back to the same pharmacist again and again, which is the punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam cycle. So you have beautifully brought out the, in this verse as to what happens to this artha and arthartha bhaktis, who are the sakama bhaktas. Now then, what happens to the nishkama bhaktas? Nishkama bhaktas do not have any material desire. Their only focus is the God. They want to know who is God. They have come to, a state of mumukshatva. And what happens to them, which is explained in this very popular verse, ananyāścintayantō. That will be explained by Dr. Rajeshwari. Ma'am?
Thank you. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Good evening, everybody. As Dr. Devaka said, this is one of the most quoted and popular verses of the Gita, and coincidentally, it happens to be almost in the middle of the Bhagavad Gita. It is ananyāścintayantō mam ye jana paryupāsatē tēṣāṁ nityābhiyuktānāṁ yōgakṣēmaṁ vahāmyaham. For those people who consider me as non-separate from themselves, who always meditate upon me with focus, and who are committed, I give them what they don't have and protect what they have. Next slide, please. The Anvayartham, that is the prosoda meaning, ye janāḥ, those people who ananya, see themselves as not separated from me, māṁ-chintayantā, inquiring into me, or even within me. They are dwelling in me. I'll tell you why it is. It could be either Mam paryupāsatē, they seek me or they worship me with dedication. Tēṣāṁ nityābhiyuktānāṁ, for those who are always with me, aham vahāmi, I will give and I will take care of what? Yōgakṣēmaṁ. Yogam is giving what they want to acquire. Kshemam is protecting what they have. Next slide, please. So as I said, Sri Shankara says this verse is talking about the sannyasi. That is why I said they are dwelling within God, or chintayantā paryupāsatē. Now, we can also consider this as talking about the nishkama bhakta. Nishkama bhakta means someone who has no attachment to the karma phalam. And they are also called madhyama bhaktas or mumukshas. As we said, they have no dvitiyam. They do not think they are separate entity from God or Paramatma. That is one. Then when Sri Krishna says they mam chintayantam, this means the nishkama bhakta is thinking of God within, or also, or it may be that he is moving towards the self-realization. As a mumuksha, they are still moving towards self-realization. To such a person who sees the reality, this mumuksha already knows world is unreal. So who knows the reality, and he's also ever devout and committed. As Dr. Divakar said, Bhakti is not a separate yoga. All this is Bhakti. And such a person, Sri Paramatma, Sri Krishna says he is giving yōgakṣēmaṁ. And Sri Krishna has already said in chapter 7, verses 17 and 18, that such a jignasu bhakta is very dear to him and he forms his very self. And such a bhakta knows that ahamkara also is Parameshwara, and he knows he is not a doer and the actions happen only in the presence of Atma. Just like how Kuchela or Sudama had nishkama bhakti towards Krishna. Next slide, please. So now there's a doubt amongst us. We may have this doubt, saying, as a karmapala data, God gives the yogam kshemam to everybody, be it a sakama bhakta, nishkama bhakta, or even an atheist. Then why would Krishna say he is giving only to the nishkama bhakta? The difference is not from God's side. It is from the individual side. So the sakama bhakta qualities has already been described. I'll just briefly say they are ajnanis and they have dvitiyam. They think God is separate, like the eka roopa or aneka roopa Ishvara. They have not reached the nirguna Ishvara jnanam. They are focused on swakarma. This has also been explained, but however, I'll tell again. If my goal is worldly pleasures like wealth or everything, I'm only focused on that. I'm working towards that. And once I've acquired the wealth, I have to protect it. So I'm going to put it in a locker in the bank, or I'm going to buy a safe. I'm going to appoint a security guard. They are so concerned about the acquisitions, and they are the karmis. Whereas the jnanis or the nishkama bhakta at this stage, they are already aware that they are not separate from Paramatma. They are dedicated and they are focused on the self-realization. And the sannyasi, for example, is not concerned about life or death. Swami Param nicely says that sannyasi who has nothing, he doesn't know where his food is going to come from, what clothes he is going to get from where, and he should be the one who should be really worried. However, the sannyasi is not worried because he knows that God takes care of his yōgakṣēmaṁ. Similarly, the nishkama bhakta is aware of that, and they know their means is and the end is both Paramatma, as Dr. Divakar told in the introduction itself. They are the akartas. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is how do you progress from the sakama bhakti status to the nishkama bhakti status? As Sri Ramakrishna has told in a parable, we have appointed a babysitter or a nanny for our baby. This lady takes care of the baby with total dedication. However, her mind is continuously thinking of the child, her own child at home. Similarly, a grihastha should be carrying out all his worldly duties with his mind constantly and consistently fixed in God. This is that is how we obtain the paryupāsanam and nityābhiyuktānāṁ. And what is the benefit of that? Next slide, please. So the benefit of that is the great reassurance. Sri Paramatma himself is reassuring that he is taking care of our yogam and kshemam. This frees us from all the worries of the world, and our own whole activity could be directed towards obtaining that moksha or self-realization. So what we should do is, we leave everything to Paramatma and be one with him. Sarvam Sri Krishnarpanamastu. Thank you. Sarvam Sri Krishnarpanamastu. Thank you. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Thank you, Rajeshwari ma'am, for another very nice explanation of this very often quoted verse. You have explained everything in detail. So dwell in the self-knowledge, nididhyasanam tēṣāṁ nityābhiyuktānāṁ. So that is how the Shankara Bhashyam talks about this. And yoga, aprapyasya praptihi, the basic needs, and the, so whatever the basic needs we need, that is provided, the yoga, and kshema, praptasya rakshanam, the protection of whatever we already have. Now, how does he protect? Will he come in person? Do we see Lord Krishna appearing in front of us, or giving and granting all of this? Again, I will take another Ramakrishna's parable. You mentioned one. There was a flooding in one place, and everybody were sitting on top of their huts for some rescue to come. This person is a very divine person. He's always praying the God. Everybody kind of went using some boats. He kept sitting on the ceiling, waiting for the God to come and rescue him. And then one of his friends came. He called him, "You come over. The water levels are raising. You will be in danger." He said, "No, I'm not coming. God will come and save me." And then another person came. The rescue team came. And then again the same answer. He said, "God will come and save me." And he refused to go with them. So eventually the water levels rise and he will drown and he will die. And then he goes to the God in the heaven. There he is very angry with the God and asking, "I kept calling you. I thought you will come and save me. You are the Karunamayi. Why did you not come and save me?" God replied back saying, "I came, trying to help you in the form of a friend. You did not, listen. I came, looking to help you in the form of a neighbor. You did not accept." So that's exactly the situation we find ourselves in. How is the God trying to protect us? All the things that we have is a privilege today. And for example, now whatever is taught in the Sanatana Dharma is in the form of the God in the Sanatana Dharma. God is in the form of the Shastras. God is in the form of the Guru. God can be in the form of the Satsang. So these are all the ways that the God can manifest, Krishna can manifest. It is the divinity and visualization of us in all of this. Where is this God available? And coming and giving me a hand to take me out from darkness to the path of the light. So do we appreciate all of this? That's exactly what has been talked about here. And practically, how do we practice nishkama bhakti? It's very difficult, isn't it? In this transactional world, when we have so many things to do, so many things to cater for, being a grihastha, we have lots of things to take care. So how do we practice this? Slowly and surely, we have to monitor a few things and then keep increasing the, increasing all of this in our day-to-day practice. The attitude of gratitude in each of our action. So this is again bringing about Ishvara Prasada Bhavana. So in every success of yours, you think of all the people who are responsible, whom you can see as manifestations of the divine force within those people who helped you. Doing dhanam, the charity, that is considered as one of the biggest sadhanas. The voluntary work, again, not for your own name. When you do the charity, let it be quiet and silent. This will help in internal purity. So contribute more than the consumption. Tapas, the self-denial, of things, of comforts and the sense pleasures. Saying no to things that you always like and testing your own self on how you react in such situations. Practicing and accepting the situations even if they are undesired, even if they are not not something that you had expected, undesired outcomes too as prasadam. That is the most toughest thing. When there is a comfortable outcome, we are happy to say God has granted this. When there is an undesired outcome, it's very difficult to accept. Of course, all of this is elaborately dealt with in the 11th chapter. And instead of complaining, look for solutions for every practical problems that we face. So complaining will only make our situations worse. And Swamiji brings about two, important acronyms: reduction of the port. Gradually, one will have to start reducing their possessions, their obligations, responsibilities, and transactions. And of course, rejection of the clasp, the controllership, the anxiety for having things and anxiety for losing the other things, losing the things that we already have, and more importantly, the special prayers. So I think it was Vindhya who covered this portion. We have to stop saying the special prayers. Instead, for Loka Kalyana, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha is a good prayer. Instead of saying, grant health and wealth to me and my family, we can include everybody. So with this, we conclude today's session, and I thank all the speakers. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Divakar, and all speakers for such a wonderful explanation, and a deeper insights of today's session. Thank you, friends, for joining us in this divine journey of today's session. On coming Friday, 11th October, let us tune in for Mandukya Upanishad, session 21. Now, it's time to conclude the session with the Shanti Mantra. ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्तिः 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 हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ